Alright, sorry, streaming.
Annie, hello, et bienvenue à cette soirée solidarité. Welcome. This evening of solidarity. My name is Monique Boulevard, and I'm a member of the Tricultural Committee for University Education at Sudbury. Le comité institutionnel pour l'éducation universitaire de Sudbury vous souhaite une chaleureuse bienvenue à TCF. The Tricultural Committee for University Education at Sudbury was formed by former faculty and students of Laurentian University, representatives of Save Sudbury, Sauvons Sudbury, la coalition nord-ontarienne pour l'Université de langue française à Sudbury, and key leaders of local Indigenous communities in response to the devastating local impact of Laurentian University's use of the CCAA. The committee aims to build bridges between communities affected by the cuts to programs and positions at Laurentian, and to support them in their efforts to reestablish a consistent university offering that meets the needs of their community. We are here tonight because of what happened on campus 1 year ago today. We all know the pain, the shock, and the anger we all felt as we learned of firings and cuts to faculty and programs that have been such an integral part of our community for so many years. Il y a un an, nous avons vécu ou été témoins d'un geste tranchant de la part de la Laurentian, un geste qui détruirait à jamais l'Université Laurentienne comme nous la connaissions, et qui donnerait naissance à un fervent désir pour une université francophone du Nord. We witnessed the destruction of the second oldest Indigenous Studies program in Canada, one that had been built with care and love by generations of Indigenous scholars, elders, and community members. We also witnessed the attack by LU on the federated universities and the dissolution of long-standing commitments which gravely impacted the arts and humanities, so that programs like women, gender, and sexuality studies, philosophy, labor studies, religious studies are no longer programs that are available in Sudbury. I'm joined tonight by fellow committee members and former members of the LU community who will be sharing the stage and space to mark the 1 year anniversary that I'm sure none of us wish we had. Many of those impacted by the cuts are still reeling from their effects, devastated by the havoc that the CCAA has brought onto their lives. Many of us are still grappling with the very real fear of becoming sick with COVID. For these and other reasons, we understand the difficulty of being here tonight. Et reconnaissant les conditions difficiles actuelles de la pandémie et des souvenirs très douloureux de la Laurentienne, c'est pour ça que nous rendons cette soirée disponible en ligne. Je remercie sincèrement Dan Scott et Ruben Roth de leur appui avec la diffusion. Thanks so much, Dan and Ruben. Once again, you pulled through for us. We are also here thanks to the generosity of Thornlow University and are very appreciative of President, Provost, and Vice Chancellor of Thornlow, John Gibault, as well as Robert Goodwin, the Building Maintenance Manager. Votre soutien ce soir est précieux et fort apprécié. So I would like to invite Président Gibault to say a few words. Président Gibault, à vous la parole.
Woo-hoo! Yeah!
Merci Monique. Bienvenue à l'Université Thornlow, à cette soirée de solidarité du Comité pluriculturel. Nous sommes ici en solidarité avec tous et toutes qui étaient touchés par les coupes budgétaires de l'Université Laurentienne en avril 2021. C'est-à-dire nous-mêmes, nos anciens collègues, les familles touchées, et au-dessous de tous, nos élèves, nos étudiants. Ici, ce soir, à l'Université Thornlow, ancienne université fédérée avec la Laurentienne, vous n'êtes pas dans un lieu neutre. Nous étions aussi touchés par l'insolvabilité de la Laurentienne et sa décision de lancer la LACC. Thornloe University is not neutral ground this evening. Our timeline in 2021 was a little bit different than Laurentian's, but on Good Friday last year, April 1st, in an open newsletter from Laurentian University, Thornloe, Huntington University, and the University of Sudbury learned that we would be defederated at the end of that month. Le président de la Laurentienne a annoncé que nos accords mutuels seront coupés unilatéralement. So with no federation, no students, no tuition, all of the federated universities laid off all of our part-time and full-time teaching staff. The Laurentian students in our programs and courses were directly affected. So this is not a neutral place. We are not hosting this event for you, but rather with you. With all of the stakeholders represented by the Tricultural Committee and beyond, we remember tonight what happened last April. We proclaim tonight that we are still all here, and we await a better future together. Chimiquetch, merci, thank you.
Just before we go on, just probably a good idea to remind about COVID rules. President Thibault, can you remind us what the rules are right now here? Obviously wearing masks if we're moving around.
Yeah, we follow the Laurentian policies to the letter. We have the residents here, and they're all Laurentian students. So social distancing when possible, and masks inside the building.
And we will have refreshments at intermission, so obviously you can take off your masks for the refreshments, but we ask that you social distance. And there's disinfectants, so if you can please use that as well. Merci beaucoup. For the next hour or so, you will hear music, messages of solidarity, testimonials, spoken word, and theater by local artists and activists who, in their profound sadness and anger, wanted to express their solidarity with all of those who 1 year ago faced the vicious cuts at Bellevue. Some of them faced those cuts themselves. They will sing, speak, or perform in French, English, and Ojibwe. They stand in solidarity. Ils et elles sont solidaires avec vous et avec nous tous. Nous allons commencer la soirée avec l'ancien professeur du département d'études autochtones. Former Indigenous Studies Professor Will Moyne will set the intention for the evening. Will?
I didn't want to stand up there because I feel real short after the president. So, allez, bonjour, Kinawea, binigyan na moki, Lumonish na kas, given no manusot many das, Mamanish na current Mama Share the Nations. Min Simiga and then I mean, what Kinama game is Simigavan, the Wajmu and then Minwa, and go to Kim Mopi and swap him up Kinama game. Binigyan Mopi, I think I'm mixing in Schnabek. My name is Will. That's my income tax name. Come on, income tax. My income tax name is Will Morin. My spirit name is North Basin Wolf. I'm originally from Mishpachatan First Nation. As Mike had introduced me as a professor of Indigenous Studies at the University of Sudbury for over 20 years and an activist within the community. And as we stand here where we are, as I said in the language, I also indicated that we, as we are, if we can all stand. When we stand at our 2 feet, we stand balanced on the land that we are on, acknowledging that we are on the land of the Atikmik and Anishinaabe. Atikmik means the Whitefish Lake. Atik means caribou. Whitefish is actually caribou fish in the Ojibwe language. And we honor the people on the land on which we reside. We must understand, as Canadian citizens, we are in the boat that is Canada that resides on Indigenous land. And that land is a land that is still alive. And the people that reside here and the language that comes from that land, I introduce myself in as I honor my Anishinaabe ancestors. And we acknowledge the land of the territory of the Anishinaabe as well as the neighboring community of Wampate First Nation. And how important it is that we know that the land that we are on was here and was resided by people who've been here for thousands of years. And when we stand on their land, when we enter their home, we must do so in a good, kind, gentle way. And we proceed in a good, balanced way. And that is how we show that respect for the land in which we are on, as we acknowledge them. And in the language of my mom and my ancestors of Anishinaabe, the word miigwech is thank you. Say it, miigwech.
Miigwech.
Now the word for gift is miigweh. Miigweh. So I recognize in the land that we are on is a gift to all of us to be shared. And I say miigwech to all of you. So, I was also in our discussions to share a piece. I offered to do a spoken word piece, and I don't know if there's music that we typed in. Is the band close by? Are they doing some stuff with me?
You're supposed to be on later.
Oh, I'm supposed to because they had me on the schedule right away. So do I get off the stage now?
Yes.
I don't have the updated schedule. So with that acknowledgement, in understanding the role that we play in the land that we are on is a partnership. And as part of Indigenous values is one of sharing. So tonight I'm honored to be here with the team members of our Tricultural Committee to share that we're going to share here today. And so I say miigwech to all of you as well. So back to you.
Miigwech, Will, for those of you who aren't aware of this, Will has been working all day. Il a fait un feu sacré, travail depuis 8 heures ce matin. Will, we are very grateful for the sacred fire today. We're also very grateful for all of your work and for the many generous teachings in a good, kind-hearted way with a lot of humor. And thank you also for being a core member of the Tricultural Committee. Nous allons maintenant souhaiter la bienvenue à Andrew Kessick, field worker with the Canadian Federation of Students Ontario, qui nous visite de Toronto aujourd'hui. And he's very nervous, so be gentle.
That definitely makes me more nervous. Well, I appreciate your comments about height, but I think I should be the one that's concerned about that. But my name is Andrew Kessick, and I'm here on behalf of the Canadian Federation of Students Ontario. Let me just take my mask off. I'm also a student myself, albeit at University of Toronto, and it's actually my first time here in Sudbury. It's unfortunate that I have to come under these circumstances, but here I am. The Federation represents 530,000 students across the country in all levels of study, including students at Laurentian University. Unfortunately, many of those students who could have been here tonight are unable to be with us because of the destructive process that forced them out. Students continue to see the impacts of the CCAA on their education in Sudbury and Northern Ontario as a whole. I spent the day today walking around campus and talking with a friend and student. We discussed how things were before the cuts and how they are now. We discussed the beauty of the green space around. I'm from Toronto, so this is a lot of green space. We discussed the beauty of the green space around campus, especially how it looks in the winter with snow covering all the trees, and how the administration wants to sell it all off. It has been over 1 year since the CCAA was announced, and cuts continue to happen at Laurentian. The CCAA has no end in sight. As well, students across Ontario have had their eyes on Laurentian University and have begun to make the connections between the cuts here and the creeping privatization of education they're seeing on their own campuses. I've heard from students at different universities and colleges that their administrations actually threaten them with a Laurentian situation. The Canadian Federation of Students has long called for a free public education system without barriers, such as tuition fees. The Federation has also demanded that education be fully funded by the provincial and federal governments and not leave education up to market forces. Market forces, that is a quote from Hache himself. This demand is especially important in the conversation about access to education in several different languages. Students and faculty should never have to choose between learning in their language or attending post-secondary education in their region. Students and faculty should never have to worry about whether or not their studies that they have dedicated themselves to in a language that they have spoken all their lives is actually profitable enough. A fully funded education system with funding from the federal and provincial governments is the only way to ensure access to education is not put in jeopardy. Institutions must never rely just on international students' tuition fees or corporate funding, and the government must immediately fund public education. The Federation unequivocally supports the Tricultural Committee for University Education at Sudbury. The Federation also stands behind the Tricultural Committee's Reconciliation Declaration, which you can sign there if you haven't. We call for an end to the CCAA process, for the restoration of public education in Northern Ontario, and for a democratic and transparent Laurentian University. Most importantly, the trilateral approach will give students the opportunity to live and learn in their own language and culture and reproduce it in an institution that serves their community. In this way, universities can remain a place of belonging, exploration, and growth, rather than becoming solely a means by which students may attain a certification on their resume. Education is to be holistic. The Federation stands with all faculty, staff, and other workers, as well as students who have been affected by the cuts. We also recognize education as a treaty right, and the CCAA is a continuation of the unequal Robinson-Huron Treaty that was signed under duress in 1850. Most importantly, education in Northern Ontario must be by and for the Franco-Ontarian community, the Indigenous community, and the Anglophone community. From across Ontario to Sudbury, solidarity.
I have a request to take photographs. Is everyone okay if we take photographs?
Makeup.
Okay, okay, so next, we are also very grateful for the presence of Joseph Shorthouse, President of the Association of Retired Academics at Laurentian University.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. As our chair mentioned, my name is Joe Shorthouse. I began my career at Laurentian University in 1975. Came here from a government postdoctorate at Agriculture Canada in Regina after my PhD at Saskatchewan and MSc and undergraduate at Alberta. I came here to help build a university. There was 1,800 students when I arrived. Totally different place than it is now. It was a place for development of ideas. It's a place where everyone felt like they were fighting on the same team. And I'm here tonight. I retired in 2013. I was here for 37 years with the Department of Biology. I'm here representing the AROLA, Association of Retired Academics at Laurentian University, between 150 and 200 former professors. We all had to retire for logical reasons. We're tired of the teaching, but loving the teaching process.
and undertaking the development of new knowledge. So we retired. To the shock of some members of administration, we're not brain dead. Just because we retired near the age of 65. Many of these professors, retired emeritus, are continuing to write, undertake public presentations, and up until Black Monday, proudly represented Laurentian University. When that event occurred, I think I can speak on behalf of all of my colleagues, a feeling of shock, disgust, anger, embarrassment to be now associated with a university that, what should somebody just call it, the Laurentian situation? That's around the world now. Around the world. It made the front page of newspapers in Britain. A friend in Seattle called, the Seattle Times. How could you do that? How could you do that? As if we were responsible for it. In my view, and all the time I've been at universities for about 50 years, and they are, other than my family, the most important thing in my life. There's two ways of managing a university. One, you can manage people, and the other, you can manage ideas. When you manage a university for people, it appears that the faculty all work for the administration. So the faculty can be removed at any time because they're like employees in a factory. The way it should be is university managed on ideas. In other words, the administration works for the faculty. The administration provides all the facilities, the music equipment, buildings, research supplies for the faculty. That's the way it was when I came here. This university has lost its way in terms of understanding that the most important people on any campus are the faculty. It's the faculty that produce our product, which is well-educated citizens who are going out in the world to solve problems, to make the world a better place. I show you the t-shirt that a friend at University of Alberta sent me. The problem here is they worry about counting dollars, not scholars. The future of this institution causes me a great deal of concern. I've not discussed this in depth with my colleagues on the Board of Governors of the Retirees Association, the retirees. I worry about Sudbury. When I came here, I had interviews at 3 different universities, Brandon, UBC, and the last thing my wife said when I got on a plane in Regina, for God's sakes, don't take a job in Sudbury. You're going alone. And it was a bleak place in 75. It stunk. It stunk of SO2. It had blackened hills everywhere. The place that Science North sits now was a blackened hill. Just before we arrived, the NASA astronauts were here to look at shatter cones, but the media, as you know, picked up on that and criticized Laurentian for being the moonscape. And it really was. And that really hurt the people of Sudbury. Then while I was here, we had a sports writer for Sports Illustrated who got off the train in Sudbury to go for a beer at a typical hotel. Where did he go? But the Lido Hotel. What did he write about Sudbury? He changed the name Sludgebury. It took a long time to get over that. My concern is the reputation of this place is so badly damaged now, I fear that it won't recover. How can you ever have a university where you close history in a day and a time when we see all historical events in Europe being repeated? How can you close a geography department and call it a university? Physics, philosophy. In the decade of restoration biology that aided in changing the institution, the whole area here, how can you close restoration ecology at Laurentian? They did. How can you close Italian studies? Both my children married Italian Canadians. How can you close political science, geography, mathematics, midwifery, native studies? The list goes on and on. Talking about it with my wife the other night and looking at the news as we all do, you know, I said to my wife, there's a lot of similarity with what's going on in Ukraine right now. Putin wants to manage people. He thinks he can just march into the Ukraine, remove all the politicians, and establish his own. Manage people. Destroy the people if they stand in your way. We've had more faculty with their lives destroyed here than in the history of any other university in Canada, if not North America. Hache to me is Putin. And the Laurentian University community is the people of Ukraine. Sadly, the politicians of Sudbury sat around watching what's happened without getting heavily involved. They could have helped stop this right at the very beginning, had they known the invasion that was coming. My recommendation, not my colleagues, mine, we've got to get rid of the administration, replace the administration. We always need administration at university, but they work for the scholars, they work for the faculty, they work for the students. And they have to be replaced. Many of us think what they did was very, very wrong, even from a legal point of view. Time will tell. The amount of money that they took and misplaced, misused, responsible for the first time in the history of Canada, a medical school leaves the university. They're embarrassed to be part of the university. What are we going to do? I really don't know. There's a whole variety of options. Maybe one would be to close it. Temporarily close it. And then, as happened at the University College in Kelowna, British Columbia, when they ran into difficulties, UBC came in, and it's a wonderful place now, with new buildings, lots of money for students, faculty, putting out all kinds of grad students, and it's now University of British Columbia, Kelowna campus. Maybe we need to start talking about things like that. But whatever we do, we have to work together to get a culture of scholarship, count scholars, not dollars. That'll get you nowhere. But somehow, those of us who are still alive, who put our lives here building this place, and are terribly hurt, most would not even be interested in donating any money. We all did donate lots of money. You'll see our names on the plaques in the Fraser Auditorium and in the Demarang Library. Try getting money from people today. Try getting faculty when they retire and sell their house in Sudbury and have lots of money, give money to their family and money to the universities. I can't imagine anyone wanting to give a penny to Laurentian now. Anyhow, those are my comments and those of my colleagues. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Put that on the t-shirts. A few people like this demonstration. Leading up to this evening, we asked people to share comments and stories of their experience at Laurentian. Sarah Pudin, a fourth-year law and justice student, sent us these comments that she wished for us to share. She wasn't able to be here because she's in the class tonight. As a student who made it out of the insolvency without facing any cuts, I decided to stay at Laurentian. It's clear that a horrible dark cloud still hangs over campus, and it will forever be changed. Our campus is virtually empty, and it is no longer the buzzing bright spot it used to be. While I was not directly impacted by the insolvency, the damage done is still very prevalent. On this one-year anniversary, I want to recognize all of the staff and students who had to leave Sudbury. I want to recognize the unjust cutting of the Francophone, Indigenous, and arts programs, as well as midwifery. Laurentian's reputation is forever tarnished, but it's the Laurentian community that inspired me to continue to fight this. Thank you, Sarah. J'en profite pour saluer Amélie Vienne, membre du comité triculturel, qui malheureusement n'est plus à Sudbury, qui a dû quitter suite aux coupures au département d'études françaises et qui est maintenant à l'Université du Québec à Trois-Rivières et qui nous écoute en rediffusion ce soir. Salut Amélie! J'aimerais maintenant souhaiter la bienvenue à Chad Savard, étudiant en sciences de l'éducation et sénateur élu pour l'ARN. Chad, à toi la parole.
Bonjour, hello. People, but I wanted to make sure I had everything, so it's going to be pretty old school. Donc, bonsoir, hello. Donc, à l'issue de certains, prédit par d'autres, et connu comme inévitable par quelques privilégiés. Les événements qui se sont déroulés ici au cours de la dernière année à l'Université Laurentienne ont touché des milliers de personnes directement et d'innombrables d'autres indirectement. Unbeknownst to some, predicted by others, and known to be inevitable by a select few, the events that transpired here in the past year at Laurentian University have impacted thousands of people directly and countless others indirectly. Basic economics. My beloved university made headlines not only across Canada, but also in cities, as we said earlier, Seattle, spanning from Chicago to Helsinki. This was by no means a small incident, a national embarrassment. Je m'appelle Chad Savard et je suis à mon 3e diplôme ici à l'Université Laurentienne dans le département d'éducation et j'occuperai le poste de premier ministre corps étudiant de l'école d'éducation ainsi qu'étudiant sénateur de l'APF dans la prochaine année académique. I chose Laurentian because Sudbury was home and was a bastion of bilingual post-secondary education. I counted myself lucky. I can honestly say I had some of the best times of my entire life. That I thank the staff, most of which had their positions terminated and had to actually leave the city. Bonjour, Joël. I remember warning my thesis professor during my bachelor's degree to brace for what was coming. We have all known for years that dire mismanagement was going to climax to something, yet never could I have imagined what happened to us in this past year. Record de mise à pied de personnel, dont l'une inclut une femme qui se préparait pour prendre son congé de maternité à l'hôpital Chauveau la semaine avant. Elle a perdu son congé de maternité. Organes disparus avec un impact disproportionné sur les francophones. Une lutte constante par l'université contre la transparence et les enquêtes. Record staff layoffs, one of which includes a woman who was about to begin her maternity leave and actually had it canceled. I don't think it was a day or a week prior, because it might be disgusting. Programs gone with a disproportionate impact on Francophone students, and a university that will not cease a constant fight against transparency and investigation. The list goes on and on and on. They promised it wouldn't affect the students, yet hello, it obviously did. Another lie. Happened mid-master's history, and they told us it wouldn't affect us. Let me tell you, I had to practically redo a project. My university is now unrecognizable. L'impact, ce n'est pas seulement fait sentir par les membres de personnel et les étudiants, mais aussi sur toute une communauté dont l'impact économique s'est fait sentir. The impact was not only on staff and students, but also an entire community whose economic impact has been felt. Excuse après excuse après excuse, mais aucune responsabilité. No accountability. Yet, you don't get to brag about being bilingual or tricultural when the only thing going for you is the signage. I support continued investigations in addition to initiatives for reparations, but most of all, in other sectors, when such things happen, an executive body is often forced to resign. I quite frankly demand this happens here.
Here, here.
We need to set an example. You don't get to cause the harm you have done and either walk away before it ends or continue to work in the same position. Nous avons beaucoup à faire. I will continue to advocate with my federal party's counterparts here in Sudbury and Nickel Belt, along with other non-partisan and other political party members, to ensure justice and reparations are met. Aux universités désormais indépendantes, nous vous saluons et nous soutenons vos efforts. L'Université de Sudbury devrait sans tarder être donné les moyens de remplir sa mission de préserver l'éducation francophone ici à Sudbury, and I also support all the other universities that left the Federation. To the now independent universities, we salute you and support your efforts. The University of Sudbury should without delay be given the resources to complete its mission to preserve Francophone education here in Sudbury, along with all other universities that have left the Federation/enforced. Finally, on another note, I end my message sur un autre note. Je termine mon message. Slava Ukraina, glory to Ukraine, gloire à l'Ukraine. Merci, thank you, miigwech. Thanks for having me.
Merci beaucoup, Chad. Dan, or is Rob here? I'm being told that the live stream, the sound is a little echoey. Can I do anything about that?
Nope.
Okay. And is there anything that can be done to put a spotlight, a brighter spotlight here? Just.
Right there.
That's possibility. Okay, thank you. So, salutations à tout le monde qui nous écoute en rediffusion. I mean, hello to everyone who is watching the live stream, and we will try to correct some of the technical problems. Our next speaker is Christina Raistlin. Christina, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Christina is a former student at Laurentian, une de plusieurs victimes de la lâche. Merci, Christina.
One year ago, Laurentian University was my home. 1 year ago, Laurentian was a place where I could expand my understanding of knowledge, reality, and life. 1 year ago, Laurentian University was taken from me in the worst way possible. A decision was made by a select few to use the company's Creditors Arrangement Act in order to restructure the university. These people would say that the CCAA was the only way to save Laurentian, but I am not sure that they understood the assignment. Bonjour, Ani, hello. Je m'appelle Christina Raistlin. I am a second-generation Finnish Canadian on my father's side, et je suis une fière franco-ontarienne du côté de ma mère. When I finished high school in 2011, I was the first person in my immediate family to have the opportunity to go to university. Laurentian was my number one choice for post-secondary education. It was close to my hometown of Timmins, Ontario, and attending Laurentian would allow me to live closer to my extended family in the greater Sudbury area. Unfortunately, due to my ill health, I was forced to drop out of school at that time and could not complete my bachelor's degree. It wasn't until late 2018 that I was able to return to post-secondary, and the first thing that I did was email the registrar's office at Laurentian. I really wanted to come back home. Immediately, I was encouraged to reapply since I had already attended Laurentian in 2011, which meant I did not have to go through the usual application process. Without question, the swift reapplication made everything so much easier for me as a disabled mature student with a very young family. In no time at all, I would be accepted into my program of choice, a Bachelor of Arts, double major in philosophy and political science. Laurentian University said that they would be happy to have me, that I would be supported, that I would have guidance. They said, come home, and so I did. In April 2019, I moved myself and my young family from Timmins to Sudbury. I eagerly returned to school that September for Thirsty for Knowledge, excited to finally have a chance to finish my bachelor's degree after being away from school for 7 years. In the first 2 semesters back at Laurentian, I discovered a part of myself that I never knew was there. My passions for environmental philosophy and for Canadian politics were nurtured and encouraged by my professors, people I would come to call my friends. The COVID pandemic hit in March 2020, and despite my learning disability, I continued to attend school online. Professors did their absolute best to support their students through the transition, and I will always be thankful and grateful to them for their patience and understanding during that time. Though COVID seemed like the worst storm we were forced to navigate, we had no idea that Laurentian University had already begun consulting insolvency experts, which would bring on an even bigger storm. By fall 2020, there were rumors going around Laurentian that something was going to happen, but it was not until February 2021 that the official announcement was made. Laurentian University was seeking creditor protection under the CCAA. At that time, honestly, I had no idea what that meant. Professors were trying to comfort their students, but it was evident that they weren't really sure what was going on either. Despite the unknown, I had a false sense of security that my programs would not be affected. After all, what is a university without philosophy and political science? April Fool's Day 2021, Laurentian announced it would be dissolving the federation, and by April 12, we knew the totality of the damage done. Over 200 professors and employees were laid off during Zoom meetings. Every single one of my professors, people who had supported me, encouraged me, guided me, people who had become mentors and friends, were told they would no longer be working at Laurentian. 69 programs, including my own philosophy and political science, were deemed unprofitable, unnecessary, and unwanted. All I could do was cry. The announcements came at the worst possible time, at the end of the semester, right before exams. I could not concentrate on anything, and I couldn't help but feel completely hopeless. Why bother writing exams for a program that was unnecessary and a program that no longer existed? I was offered to continue my studies at Laurentian by completing an interdisciplinary degree, a general degree that I had no interest in, and even if I did, all of the professors that I would have wanted to mentor me were fired and were no longer here. Because of my chronic illnesses, I could not move away from Sudbury, so I chose to enroll at Athabasca University, which is an online institution in Alberta. I wish I could say that I've been successful in my studies there, but because of the lack of synchronized class time with the professor, it's been very difficult for me. I probably will not be able to complete my degree on time, if at all. The 1-year anniversary of this tragedy has reminded me of what I have lost, what my children have lost, what everyone living in Northern Ontario has lost, the right to equitable education. It angers me. It angers me so much that neither level of government have stepped up to save Laurentian, or to save Sudbury, or to save our futures. Last year, the rug was pulled from beneath our feet, and we are perpetually falling. I'm not sure what my next steps are in my academic journey, but one thing is for sure. I will not stop talking about the 2021 Laurentian University financial crisis until my programs, all programs, are reinstated and available to us in the market. Merci, miigwech, thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Christina. Et malheureusement, comme toi, il y a eu beaucoup de gens qui ont vécu des situations très similaires, non? It's really sad. And it should never have happened, ever. Et maintenant, une petite surprise. Il y a quelques années de cela, Laurentian University rendait public son plan stratégique. Thierry Bissonnette, accompagné de Will Morin, that's your cue, though. Lauren Hartley et David Zapier font un petit rappel du plan quelques années plus tard. In this review of LU's strategic plan, we will also hear Alan Walsh, former music professor, also a program that was cut, and Philippe Mathieu, student and editor of L'Avenir des Génies. Both Alan and Philippe are with the Not LU Jazz Combo, which will be performing this coming Thursday at Oscar's Restaurant. À vous la parole, la guerre.
Together.
Bon,
ben oui.
Together. Ah, ouais.
Imagine 2023. Ensemble. Together.
Ah, ouais.
Ensemble.
Together.
Together.
Ah, ouais.
Ensemble.
Together.
Ah, ouais.
Notre plan stratégique. Ensemble. Together.
Ah, ouais.
Ensemble. Together.
Ah, ouais. Located on the 1850 Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory, Laurentian University recognizes that we are not, but we are on the traditional lands of the Atikamekw, Shing, Anishinaabeg, and the Wampanoag First Nations. Laurentian is committed to strengthening the foundation of knowledge in higher education and research, to offer outstanding, comprehensive approach to Indigenous education. Together with its federated partners, Laurentian University prepares leaders who bring innovation, innovative intelligence, solutions to local and global issues.
Les relations sont notre priorité. Nous établissons des collaborations sur tous les campus avec des partenaires locaux, provinciaux, nationaux et internationaux. Parce que les relations nous habitent. Ensemble, nous sommes plus forts.
Our shared values. Laurentian University is a microcosm of Canada. We are northern, we are bilingual, we are committed to reconciliation. Canadians are known for our diversity as we promote inclusion, civility, and respect. Our best solutions are collaborative ones. We are rich in cultural resources. We are stewards of vast landscapes and beautiful environments. Our healthcare is the envy of many, while some have declared the world needs more Canada. We are convinced the world needs more Laurentian. Laurentian University has particular strengths that position us to create knowledge, undertake fundamental research, and make significant contributions to crucial issues facing society.
Nos valeurs communes. L'Université Laurentienne est un microcosme du Canada. Nous sommes dans le Nord. Nous sommes bilingues. Nous prônons résolument la réconciliation. Les Canadiens sont réputés pour leur diversité et leurs valeurs communes que sont l'inclusion, la civilité et le respect. Nos meilleures solutions sont celles qui misent sur la collaboration. Nous sommes riches en ressources naturelles. Nous sommes les gardiens de vastes territoires et de magnifiques environnements. Notre système de santé est très envié, même si certains ont déclaré que le monde a besoin de plus de Canada. Nous sommes convaincus que le monde a besoin de plus de Laurentienne. Grâce à ces atouts particuliers, la Laurentienne est bien placée pour créer des connaissances, entreprendre des recherches fondamentales et apporter d'importantes contributions à la résolution de problèmes cruciaux.
Our strengths. Indigeneity. Laurentian University will be a leader in the purpose of reconciliation through transformative post-secondary education and research.
Alors, Marcel, c'est un catalyseur des communautés franco-campaniennes dynamiques dans tout l'Ontario et ailleurs. Le drapeau franco-ontarien flotte fièrement sur notre campus, là où il est conçu. La Laurentienne offre des possibilités hors pair aux francophones, étudiants français et aux étudiants de l'immersion de continuer leurs études en français ou dans des programmes bilingues. La langue française prospère ici, le programme
Le Nord nous inspire. Nous serons, en 2023, un carrefour des arts et de la culture, pour mieux connaître les contributions culturelles des autochtones, des franco-ontariens et d'autres artistes.
The North inspires us. We will equip graduates to practice, teach, and contribute as employees of choice in Francophone, rural, and Indigenous contexts throughout the North and beyond.
Le Nord nous inspire. Nous avons montré notre engagement continu en tant que champions de culture francophone et de la langue française. En fait, et surtout dans des programmes dynamiques et des services en français.
The North inspires us. We will incorporate a holistic approach to wellness in our everyday practices as we embrace the beautiful, natural environment that our campus offers, informed by the Okanagan chapter, an international charter of health promoting universities and colleges.
Well-being. Laurentian University will provide innovative solutions to address particular health concerns and the general well-being of the North and its population. We equip highly qualified personnel studying English and French and with Indigenous communities. Our nursing programs benefit from a state-of-the-art clinical learning lab and many collaborative partnerships. We have the only midwifery program in French in Canada outside of Quebec. And the second largest speech-language pathology program in the world.
Interdisciplinarité. L'Université Laurentienne créera des connaissances interdisciplinaires pour offrir des solutions incontournables aux défis complexes de la société. La structure souple du baccalauréat SA encourage les étudiants à combiner les modules des arts, des sciences, de l'administration des affaires, tout en étudiant en anglais et en français. En raison d'une présence dynamique au centre-ville du Grand Sudbury, imagine 2020.
Student success is our success. Laurentian students will become more familiar with Indigenous ways of being and principles of reconciliation, various aspects of campus culture.
La réussite de notre population étudiante est notre réussite. La population étudiante de la Laurentienne sera en meilleure santé physique, car elle aurait davantage accès à des zones de loisirs, des options alimentaires saines et de merveilleux services de soutien à la santé mentale.
Student success is our success. Laurentian students will benefit from enhanced services and infrastructure to support writing and information literacy, advising, academic planning, administrative service, and progress tracking.
Teaching and learning defines us. We will be a national leader in Indigenous education because of expanded Indigenous curriculum offerings across all facilities and
Nous serons les premiers au monde en matière de recherche et d'enseignement en exploration rurale. Nous serons des leaders du développement communautaire durable grâce à nos contributions à l'innovation sociale et aux recherches sur les politiques.
Relationships are our priority. We pursue collaborations across campus and with local, provincial, national, and international partners because relationships empower us. Together, we are stronger.
achieve these outcomes.
Ensemble.
Together.
Oh, ouais.
Ensemble.
Together. Ensemble. Together. Ensemble. Together. Ensemble. Together. Ensemble. Together.
Swagbuck. Reconciliation Declaration for the equal and truthful trilateral path to university restoration at Sudbury.
Cette déclaration se veut une réponse démocratique à la ligne de conduite autoritaire adoptée par l'administration et le Conseil des gouverneurs de la France. Ceux-ci ne résoudront pas la crise par la voie qu'ils ont choisie. Bien au contraire, ils sont en train de causer des dommages énormes à l'éducation universitaire à Sudbury dans le nord de l'Ontario. Les répercussions de ces gestes sont essentielles bien au-delà.
We need a new trilateral structure based on the equality of the founding partners, Indigenous, Franco-Ontarian, and Anglophone. The mandate of Laurentian should be changed to reflect that the leadership and funding for Indigenous and Franco-Ontarian education and research has passed forward from Laurentian to the new Indigenous and Franco-Ontarian universities. Accordingly, all provincial and federal emergency funding to rebuild and sustain Indigenous and Francophone programs should go directly to the emerging Indigenous and Franco-Ontarian universities, not to Laurentian University.
Restore public university education at Sudbury, funded as independent universities representing Indigenous, Franco-Ontarian, and Anglophone communities with equal rights, working mutually for the common good of the peoples and the land of Northern Ontario.
En qualifiant et en édictant secrètement son processus, le Conseil de gouverneur de la Laurentienne a trahi la confiance de la communauté. La Laurentienne est une université publique financée par nos impôts, donc une bonne part par les travailleurs et les contribuables du nord de l'Ontario. Les communautés du Nord sont en droit d'exiger de la Laurentienne qu'elle se comporte comme une institution publique et non comme une entreprise privée, et qu'elle respecte ses engagements envers la communauté qui la soutient et le taille des communautés au sein de telle université.
La Laurentienne clame haut et fort son mandat bilingue et triculturel. Or, le Conseil des gouverneurs de la Laurentienne agit de façon unilatérale pour mettre fin aux relations historiques de l'institution avec ses partenaires fédérés, l'Université de Sudbury, l'Université of Sudbury, l'Université Huntington et l'Université Thornhill. Les accueillant ainsi à la faillite. Together. Ensemble. La stratégie.
With a strategic plan like that, what could go wrong? So, Will,
Yes.
are you gonna take the floor for the now?
Yep.
Okay.
So before we get the boys jamming on that jazz, I just want to do a quick setup insofar as what is missing in the room that is here right now are many of the students, and many of the students that I've taught. Having been a graduate of Laurentian's Indigenous Studies program and going off and then returning to become a teacher here, I was humbled to be in that opportunity to share what it is that I had gained, what I had benefited from the people that started the Department of Indigenous Studies. That it was many people that brought it to where it is now, but those that began is who it is I stand on, the shoulders of the work they've done. From Jim Dumont to Dr. Newberry, as well as to Art Solomon. His daughter had reached out to me and asked that I speak on behalf of the work that these people had done. to remind us of the work that is important and the reality of our shared history in this land, and that there are generations of Indigenous peoples that have come and learned and discovered and reaffirmed their identity, and reaffirmed our role, and reaffirmed our title to the land. If we are here in this land called Canada, we're here together. And how important it is that we share that knowledge and to have that Department of Indigenous Studies made it possible for so many people to begin life anew, in spite of so much of our shared history. In this room, when I was working on my master's, is when I also wrote the piece that I'll be sharing in a few minutes. And while I was in this room during one of my classes with my colleagues and my peers, that one of my classmates did a presentation on Maria Campbell's Half-Breed. And as she spoke, as a non-Indigenous woman, she felt it important to be respectful for that voice. That voice that Maria Campbell, as a Métis woman, she had asked a professor in our department, Oved Mercury, who was the Assembly of First Nations Grand Chief many years ago and was a guest lecturer in our department. And he came to sit among and with us to share, as he and Maria Campbell were friends. They worked together in the leadership forming of what is Canada now known as the Assembly of First Nations. And while he sat here and he shared and he talked about that experience he had and the struggle that many of his peers were going through, and every second phrase he had, he included the word white man this and white man that. And the team professors that were there listening to him, they were getting uncomfortable in their seat and just waiting for the opportunity to come in and ask him. And when he was finished, he asked any questions. And of course, their hand was up and they asked, please tell me, what do you mean by white? He paused, he leaned back in his chair, he looked around in this room. And he said, other than a few canvases or paintings on the wall, it says, what else on this campus is Indigenous? And of course, blank faces on the professors. So Oved said to them, you want to know what white is? We're in it. And that reality is where I come from as a person of mixed ancestry and struggling to find that sense of identity, a sense of self. I sought through education. And as I come through and struggle as an individual with a learning challenge as well too, that I returned to education to find the answers. I served as a medic in the armed forces during the time of the first Gulf War, but prior to that was the opiate crisis. And it was then that I realized I needed to find answers. And as I sought my degrees, as I sought my education, as I returned here and worked on my master's, and I sat with a friend struggling to try to find the words of my frustration, the piece that I'm about to share was written 22 years ago. The words that are in here are the words in the language of those whom I am wishing to speak to, because they aren't speaking with us. The title is An Open Letter, Cynicism and Mount Olympus. And I honor my friend Sonia Walbert, who was a wonderful supporter and editor of my text. The students in universities and colleges of most Western developed countries today come from a cross-section of the world's cultures, traditions, and values. This, however, is not reflected in either the institution's content and delivery of the subjects or their services.
I agree.
This kind of ethnocentrism as our guiding principle continues today, 20 plus years ago. With the Vatican's decree on ecumenism, the perfect of the congregation of the doctrine of faith, in the Globe and Mail, the Roman Catholic Church, holier than thou, written by J. Manning, September 13, 2000, where the Catholic Church states that they are the only true religion. These institutions and systems are obviously blindly designed to perpetuate the culture of their origin. As an aside, here we are 22 years later and we get an apology. Half apology. As undergraduates and graduates of several post-secondary institutions in Canada, Laurentian University specifically, cynicism sometimes is our healthiest outlet. We herein exercise that freedom. In reference to an ancient Greek analogy, Oedipus still leads the way. Don't forget, I spoke out that kind of thing. Like Troy, tell me about your mother. The tenured gods of academia who live on Mount Olympus, Laurentian University, stand untouchable. In their isolation from and superiority in both attitude and altitude. To the citizens of Sudbury, we have the top tower moving down the city, don't talk about it. These gods never intended to invite mankind for tea. Immortal, these gods wield rhetorical lightning bolts and walk Medusa-like discourses at mortals. What do we, mere humans, students, know of these gods and their games? The humane treatment of citizens is not a consideration worthy of gods. No. Or is it, or should it be? History tells us that the human element surely does not apply to those from Mount Olympus. Zeus and his council of gods looks down upon the simpletons they manipulate, segregate, degrade with detachment from the R.D. Parker building, Laurentian University's ivory tower. In addition to being a mining town on the edge of a solid continental block, some of Sudbury's institutions are as hard-hearted as the city's bedrock, as slow in forward movement as the Canadian Shield. The glacial speed of adaptation and coldness of these systems in their treatment of students dehumanizes the citizens no more than it demonizes the gods. In pursuit of fiscal responsibility, the human element is rarely found in these equations. It is no surprise that academic institutions of higher learning are in fact in the business of money, not education. Our religious offerings of tuition, we don't got it. Second mortgage, 3 kids. tuition to these gods and their demigods, the administrators of the Lawrence University on Mount Olympus, surely are of some worth beyond a piece of paper. Is a degree a piece of paper? Or are they? Is it? I guess now, is it toilet paper as well? The great oracles of Queen's Park and Ottawa support these isolated systems of arbitrary hierarchy, like benevolent despot dictators. The gods keep changing the rules, developing loopholes, disclaimers, and self-proclaimed, self-programmed guardians to meet their needs, demanding more in the form of offerings each year. Like an oath. Accountability, together with fiscal responsibility, leads these gods to fear life outside their predestined pecking order. Some immortals claim to be naive, or naively arrogant, or arrogantly naive, or negligent. This claim strengthens their rank and position on Mount Olympus. In contrast, there is a second group of immortals who sincerely do what they can to assist mortals in their humanity. Those who do know who they are. Sadly, there are others who know of this injustice, may not act upon it, wishing they could, and are feeling left helpless through passive collaboration. We maintain the rule of silence. Therefore, we must break the silence. Remove the blinders and call for humanity on Mount Olympus. Here are your choices. 1. We can quietly perpetuate the exclusive sterile society without cultural diversity. Or you can invite other cultures and other ways to join and create a future that reflects society, one where intercultural lifestyles are accepted and educational needs are met.
Il y a nombreux chapitres tragiques qui ont été écrits cette année dans l'histoire de Laurentian University. And one of the most unjust was when Laurentian decided to cut its ties with the Federation Code. That decision sent faculty, students, and community members reeling into a state of utter shock and betrayal. Stéphane Gauthier, diplômé du programme d'études françaises, un autre programme qui n'existe plus, et maintenant directeur général et culturel du campus francophone de Sudbury, est ici pour partager une lettre forte d'émotion et de détresse qu'il a écrite il y a un an. Alors, Stéphane.
Monsieur les musiciens, merci.
Alors, c'est un texte qui a été publié dans le journal Le Voyageur en mars 2021. À titre d'ancien étudiant de l'Université Laurentienne, qu'on n'appelle plus ainsi, on la nomme tout simplement Laurentian U, et de l'Université de Sudbury. So there will be some irony added to that strategic plan. We didn't think there would be more room, but there's some more room. We're moving to Place des Arts this week. And Place des Arts was actually born out of a cultural and intellectual tradition here on campus in departments that don't exist anymore. So there's angst and grief added to the irony. Oui, d'accord. Alors, le titre de l'article, c'est Le phare qui n'éclaire plus. Loosely translated, The lighthouse that has no more fire. Personne n'a à se réjouir de la débâcle financière et administrative de l'Université Laurentienne. Dans son sens le plus ambitieux et le plus élevé, une université est un phare qui éclaire sa société, ses décideurs et sa jeunesse. Sa mission est de transmettre et de repousser les frontières de la connaissance, d'aider son milieu à se comprendre, puis de réfléchir aux enjeux de son temps. Pour une région comme le nord de l'Ontario, c'est l'instrument critique qui a le devoir de penser son développement, ou notre développement, en formant la prochaine génération, tout programme confondu. Il n'est sans doute pas innocent que les Jésuites aient choisi d'ériger le campus qui surplombe le contour du bassin de Sudbury. C'était une invitation à s'élever, à réfléchir à l'abri des bruits de la ville. Pour les francophones, c'était une promesse d'épanouissement et de traitement équitable, malgré de grands compromis. Le petit pot de terre était contraint de s'associer au petit pot de fer sur le chemin chaotique du bilinguisme institutionnel avec les mirages de l'idéalisme canadien qui brillait dans le lointain horizon. Aujourd'hui, c'est le phare laurentien qui a des pieds d'argile et il a perdu le nord. Et la communauté est maintenant dépossédée de son bien le plus précieux. Une des principales raisons d'être de l'Université Laurentienne, affichée sur son site web, encore aujourd'hui, j'ai vérifié, est d'offrir, je cite, une expérience universitaire hors pair en anglais et en français. Or, il y a longtemps, très longtemps, que la Laurentienne ne tient plus sa promesse envers les francophones et c'est à se demander si elle ne l'a jamais tenue depuis le pacte de sa fondation. Guy Gaudreau, sur l'histoire de l'enseignement français et le bilinguisme à la Laurentienne, publié à l'occasion des 50 ans de l'institution, publie un chapitre dans un livre sur l'histoire de l'université, il suffit de lire 3 chapitres qu'il a écrits pour voir défiler le récit édifiant d'un bilinguisme de façade et d'un constat d'échec quasi permanent. On y comprend que c'est une administration qui ne pense pas sa francophonie parce qu'elle ne travaille pas en français. Que c'est une administration qui n'est pas au diapason avec les aspirations les plus profondes de la part française de sa communauté, parce qu'elle a toujours refusé de lui accorder des instruments de développement et un pouvoir décisionnel. C'est une administration qui n'a exprimé aucune vision ambitieuse et inspirante pour le développement de la francophonie parce qu'elle l'instrumentalise jusqu'à lui imputer une partie de ses récents repères. Et c'est ainsi qu'au moment où on créait l'Université de l'Ontario français dans le sud de l'Ontario, l'Université de Laurentienne a fait le silence, se repliant dans un silence incompréhensible, inexcusable. Je suis un diplômé du département de français de l'Université de Laurentienne, où j'ai reçu une éducation de très grande qualité, dont je n'ai pas eu à rougir en poursuivant mes études ailleurs. Mais mon alma mater, ce n'est pas l'université. C'est mon ancien département et mon milieu culturel. Vivre et étudier en français sur la campus a toujours été un confort. À mon époque, de 88 à 92, le vent de création des collèges français soufflait. Mon université, c'était le salon étudiant l'entre-deux, la grande-messe de la nuit sur l'étang, l'équipe de hockey de l'AEF. J'apprenais à lire et à penser en compagnie de professeurs, les Doré, Dixon, Bélanger, Hussan Divaras, Esbois, Lefière, Martin, Sabourin. Je m'initiais à mon milieu culturel aux côtés de professeurs généreux et engagés. Le théâtre communautaire avec le TNO complétait mon initiation et la salle d'urgence, un pub improvisé au sous-sol du Carrefour francophone, pensait les blessures des combats du journal étudiant L'Orignal déchaîné sous l'impulsion de l'impétueux Normand, qui est aussi un ancien du département français. J'ai goûté ce que peut être un milieu de vie français engagé intellectuellement et stimulant, qui agit dans l'intérêt de sa communauté. J'ai vécu de près ce que peut donner une masse critique qui converge vers un but noble et commun. Créer des lieux vivants était devenu un programme intellectuel et social. La crise actuelle survient au moment même où la transmission des savoirs se transforme et où nous avons besoin de réfléchir à l'université de demain et à la fécondité des disciplines qui dialoguent. Nous avons devant nous, et les décideurs ont devant eux, et à portée de main, l'unique occasion de définir le prochain chapitre de l'éducation universitaire de langue française dans le Nord. Et là-dessus, je salue le travail du comité triculturel pour l'éducation universitaire de Sudbury. Imaginez si depuis 60 ans, la Laurentienne avait agi avec une authentique bienveillance, sans nous instrumentaliser, sans nous faire sentir qu'on était de trop et jamais assez nombreux. Vous savez à quoi nous aurions eu droit? Il suffit de voir la spectaculaire contribution et croissance de l'Université de Moncton depuis 1969 pour savoir à quel rendez-vous l'histoire voudrait nous convier et le rendez-vous que la Laurentienne a manqué. Le voyage du petit pot de terre avec le petit pot de fer a assez duré. Il y a longtemps que les morceaux sont plus corsés. Il est l'heure de tourner la page sur une relation dysfonctionnelle et inégale pour construire sur les bases de notre tradition d'enseignement et de recherche, avec le meilleur de ce que nous sommes, notre université française pour le Nord, notre université de Sudbury, et j'ajoute nos universités solidaires.
boîtes vont avoir été défaites, et nous autres, on peut juste en figurer. Pas avoir à s'imaginer tout le travail que vous faites en ce moment. Et bonne chance avec le déménagement organisé de la place des enfants. We would now like to welcome Alex Tétrault, diplômé des programmes de théâtre et sciences politiques. Ah, regardez donc ça. 2 autres programmes qui n'existent plus. Alex a aussi été président de l'Association des étudiants francophones. Alex va nous partager ses réflexions par rapport à la Laurentian. Alex will also read a poem that was sent in by Réal Fillon, former philosophy professor at University of Sudbury, yet another program that no longer exists. Salut, professeur Fillon, on espère que vous écoutez. Alex, à toi la parole.
Amis, bonsoir. Hello. Salvete omnes. Je me suis dit, tant qu'à faire que je suis à Thornlow, je vais utiliser le latin que j'ai appris ici. C'est rare que je l'utilise en conversation, en fait, tant qu'à faire. So first, I'll start off by reading the poem from Réal Fillon, and I'll get into my own thoughts. Soliloquy of sorts. The earth turns, new growth announces the revolutionary spring, but reminds us too, but one revolution ago, of the great culling. The retired now, literally withdrawn from a lifetime's endeavor, I was a lucky one. There is and was no resignation, and of the anger and anguish of a year ago, the anger remains unabated and unanswered. I did not become a lawyer, a medical doctor, or architect. I did not become a banker or a judge. I sought to occupy a different space within society, a scholar, one of many that people the academy. The academy, many bodies combined, a corporation, a place of study, aspiration, but also ambition. And corporations in these parts can be culled, bodies dispersed when ambition goes astray. What do I do with the anger that remains, that roars and rears unexpected and unannounced, even in the coming warmth of spring? From my retirement, I contemplate an earlier resignation from the Senate whose task to ensure academic integrity had turned to dissembling and preparing the call. Perhaps the lingering anger is with myself, with that earlier resignation, which I decided alone, without consultation, uncollegially, alone at my computer, a virtual presence signing off, instead of resigning later en masse, in protest and in resistance to the culling to come. Is there ambition in indignation? I wonder, retired, unresigned. My hand for you. Je me nomme Alex Tétrault et je suis un diplômé des différents programmes de théâtre, de sciences politiques et de Ancient Studies. Il y a 5 ans, en 2017, je traversais la scène de l'Auditorium Fraser pour ramasser mon diplôme. Mon diplôme qui, depuis, traîne dans un fond de tiroir. Des gens devraient être fiers d'avoir accompli des études postsecondaires et leur séjour devrait figurer parmi les meilleurs moments de leur vie. Quoique j'ai passé des moments inoubliables en classe, en salle de répétition et même, oui, dans la chambre des communes. Moi, j'en ai honte. J'ai passé 5 ans dans une institution qui ne m'aidait pas à m'épanouir, à grandir, à découvrir qui je suis. Ce travail-là, je l'ai fait malgré la Laurentian, en dépit de ce qu'elle m'a fait vivre. Je voyais mes profs se battre pour un accès à des locaux adéquats, à du financement stable, à une reconnaissance que ce que nous faisions était important. Je voyais mes amis s'endetter, se fendre en quatre et péter aux frais, parce que pour la Laurentian, nous n'étions que des chiffres, des sources de revenus ambulants. J'ai tenté de m'impliquer, de faire ce que je ressentais était nécessaire, prendre la parole et essayer de changer les choses. Je me suis embarqué en politique étudiante avec tout l'enthousiasme innocent d'un jeune de 20 ans qui ne sait pas encore ce qu'il attend. Toute la bonne volonté au monde n'y peut rien face à la politicaillerie, au doublespeak, aux crises successives, aux coulisses du pouvoir qui ne veulent pas que quelqu'un ait un mot à dire et qui vont faire à leur tête, peu importe. Je me suis fait passer sur le rouleau compresseur et j'en suis à peine sorti. Nous méritons mieux que ce qui s'est passé en avril 2021, mais nous devons être réalistes et admettre que la Laurentian est brisée depuis longtemps. Les liens avec la communauté tranquillement, progressivement, rompus un par un. Les arts relégués au second plan, les programmes en français moribonds, le bon sens sacrifié pour des projets immobiliers vaniteux. Le service que Bob Haché nous a rendu, c'est que nous voyons tous maintenant clairement que la Laurentian n'allait jamais fonctionner pour nous. Qu'elle allait toujours nous voir comme des sangsues qui tétaient sur ses revenus, mais ô combien importants. Que l'éducation ne devrait servir qu'à faire du cash et que la curiosité académique, la recherche, ne sont pas si importants que ça dans le fond. Si nous, rassemblés ici, pouvons témoigner de quoi, c'est qu'il existe un avenir post-Laurentian. Nous l'avons survécu, cette institution. Maintenant, c'est à nous de rêver à l'après, de nous assurer que quelque chose de pareil ne se passe plus jamais. Laissons le recteur se lécher ses plaies, radoter, régurgiter ses mêmes pâtés de pointe vides d'action sur l'importance de son mandat triculturel, comme Néron qui fait brailler son violon dans sa tour d'ivoire pendant qu'un homme brûle autour de lui. L'avenir appartient à ceux qui se lèvent tôt, puis Bob qui nous a réveillés en maudit. Nous devons battre le fer pendant qu'il est chaud et nous doter nous-mêmes d'une institution, voire des institutions accessibles, qui nous respectent, qui travaillent par, pour et avec nous tous. Et ça, nous ne pouvons le faire qu'ensemble, par la collaboration. L'institution qui permettra des centres de la Laurentian doit avant tout avoir au cœur de sa démarche ses étudiants, sa communauté, ceux qui la nourrissent et qui lui permettent de vivre. Les décisions ne peuvent plus se prendre à huis clos, dans des bureaux sombres, dans des recoins migueux, par des gens paternalistes qui pensent que nous ne savons pas ce que nous voulons, ce dont nous avons besoin pour nous épanouir. Nous ne pouvons pas devenir complaisants, laisser aux autres le droit de rêver à notre avenir collectif à notre place. Nous devons apprendre des erreurs des 60 dernières années. Notre communauté, déjà fragilisée, ne peut pas se permettre que nous oublions que l'histoire, malgré toutes les meilleures intentions du monde, peut se répéter si nous ne faisons pas attention. Même après tout ce qui s'est passé, après le temps écoulé depuis le coup de hache dans le dos, ça fait encore mal que la santé de notre communauté et de notre ville dépend tellement d'une institution qui se sacre visiblement de nous. Mais malgré tout, malgré le venin qui sillonne toujours dans mes veines et surtout malgré l'histoire, je choisis d'être optimiste, d'oser espérer que nous allons pouvoir construire quelque chose de vraiment beau ensemble, ici dans le Nord. On a du boulot en esti à faire si nous voulons que le legs que nous allons laisser aux prochaines générations d'artistes, de penseurs et de citoyennes en est un dont nous pouvons tous être fiers. C'est plus tard de niaiser. Miigwech, thank you, merci, salut.
Merci beaucoup, Alex. Alors, notre avant-dernière intervention, c'est avec Lauren Carney. L'intervention théâtrale de Lauren s'inscrit dans le spectacle Voici, moi si je viens du Nord. Lauren's theater piece is just one of the many wonderful segments of the magical virtual mosaic that was the play Voici, moi si je viens du Nord. It was produced against all odds, in the midst of a pandemic, followed by vicious cuts at Laurentian, all while they were rehearsing for the play. To understand the importance of this play, we have to go back to 1971, when a young group of students at Laurentian and U of S created a play to express their own vision of the world. That play, Moi je viens du Nord, Esti, would become the foundation of a new artistic and cultural Franco-Ontarian movement. It would lead to the creation of the Coopérative des artistes du Nouvel-Ontario, the Théâtre du Nouvel-Ontario, les Éditions Porte-Parole, and so many other organizations. And it would transform the lives of many Franco-Ontarians across the province, myself included, whose first experience would have often been with the Concerts de la Nuit sur le Temps. And all of that with Laurentian and U of S at its birthplace. 50 ans plus tard, la suppression du programme de théâtre à la Laurentian est venue signifier la fin d'une époque pour les étudiants de l'établissement sudburois. Ces derniers commencent à réaliser que leurs pièces célèbrent non seulement le début de la culture franco-ontarienne et l'anniversaire du piano, mais ironiquement et douloureusement, elle va aussi marquer la fin du théâtre à la Laurentian. Et tout ça alors qu'ils sont en pleine création, en pleine pandémie. Écoutez, Laura.
J'aimerais commencer je suis seule aujourd'hui. Je vais faire la dernière semaine passée sans mes amis, mes collègues que j'ai créés, Project. Savez-vous c'est quoi ma plus grande peur? J'ai pas peur du début. J'ai pas peur du commencement. J'ai pas peur du changement. J'ai tellement peur de... Parce que je sais pas s'il y a un autre début qui m'attend. On aime ça débuter les choses. Fait que nous, ça va aller. La majorité des Gen Z, ça va aller. We got this. Mais vous, la question pour vous, quand vous voyez aller là, est-ce que ça vous motive de nous aider? Est-ce que ça vous tente de participer? Vous préférez juste nous regarder. Vous préférez nous laisser se faire assimiler. Parce que si c'est juste un show pour vous, juste quelque chose de beau à voir, juste une autre lignée d'ados qui essaieront de nous garder saufs, bien, Chris, s'il vous plaît, faites le saut. Soit saut dans l'eau ou saut chez chevaux, puis décalissez pour qu'on sauve ce fiasco. Vous êtes présents à Chris, puis on est à veille pour les bateaux, là. Nous, on sort la tête de l'eau parce qu'il faut. Il faut faire de quoi pour la planète Terre avant qu'elle soit finie. Il faut faire de quoi pour nos gens marginalisés, pour nos amis. Il faut faire de quoi pour notre si belle Sudbury. Si on veut que dans 50 ans, elle voit encore la vie, qu'elle soit encore en vie. Merci.
And Alan, I am so sorry. I completely forgot about you. How could I do that? Can you please come up here? I don't know if any of you saw the wonderful video that Alan posted last year of the last practice of the jazz band. It was absolutely powerful and heartbreaking. And Alan wanted to talk about the impact of the past year music program. So I'm terribly sorry.
Okay.
Get up here.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening. My name is Alan Walsh. I'm a musician, an educator, a music repair technician, an artistic director, and a producer. I'm very proud to be part of the events that are created by the tricultural community here to help shine a light on a horrible failure at all levels that transpired last year at this time, when on April 11th, we know Laurentian University cut 69 programs. Incredible. Geography, philosophy, physics, math, arts, theater, music, and of all things, French, and Indigenous courses. I'm not from Sudbury. I married a woman here who's from Sudbury, and that's why I'm here. But the real reason I'm here, the real reason, and it has to do with what all the French people have been talking about this evening. You know, it's Tiano, la Nuit sur la Terre, you know, Boreal Festival. I came here with Robert Paquette for the Festival Boreal, and that's where I met my wife. So I have a long speech, you know, and I'm just gonna tell you why I came here and how things changed so much. When I came here, I thought this was this is about Franco-Ontarian life. You know, my wife's parents were French, and they spoke French, and everything was French. And I know what you were talking about, you know, that Sudbury was black and it was bleak, you know, and I have to disagree. I don't think it was, because they took me out to the French River, and it was absolutely astoundingly beautiful. Now, I have to tell you also, I'm from Prince Edward Island. I really do know about beauty. I know what it is, and this is it. It's right here. Even when it was the moonscape, you know, it was still very beautiful. I came also by train, and I landed at Cape Rio out there, you know. And I remember I had a bed, you know, and I opened the drapes, you know, and it was like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I looked, and it looked kind of bleak. I was afraid at first, but then I got to Boreal Festival, and it was welcoming, and it was incredible. And so I'm not surprised that Stéphane would put together with these other people a new Place des Arts here, you know, because that's saying, yes, Laurentian had made a big mistake here, you know, but, you know, French people are keeping the culture going. But things here, there's other things that are not working out, and here at the Laurentian, what they did was just wrong. It's not the first time, and that's what I said to the Tricultural Committee when I first started here. This is not the first time this happened when I was with the music program here. We were at Huntington College. We were doing our Christmas recital, and the chair of the region of Huntington, walked onto the stage and told us that they're cutting the music program. That was over 12 years ago, and we were still here, you know. So we felt proud and strong because one of the presidents happened to be a fairly good person who was interested in arts and music, Judith Woodsworth, and she saved, you know, but it wasn't just her. It was because we didn't have a pandemic happening at this time. So we were able to do a concert to let everybody know what's going on with the music program. Do you remember the old Great Hall? It was a pretty big place. It was packed with citizens from Sudbury who were basically putting their foot down and saying, no, you're not going to do this. And it's not about money. Like you said, it's not about money. And that's what's going on here at Laurentian. David has said it as well. In all his research, you know, about the arts, it's not about money. But they try to do that over and over and over. But it's been very difficult for musicians, even before the COVID. Okay? I just played La Nuit sur la Terre with Patricia Cano. It was absolutely astounding. It was just so nice to play a concert again. It was just fantastic. But, you know, the things that have been going on to musicians, you know, Spotify. You can have 500 million plays and streams on there, and you get the check, you know, after the month, and you get, you know, $9.48. It's really, really difficult to be a musician at this time, you know. So all these types of things are going on top of the arts, and that's what's going on. And we have to stop it somewhere. I don't know where or how. The only thing that artists always say is just make more art. Right? Just make more art. Just keep doing it. It's all we've been doing. I've been doing it my whole life, you know, and still get beat down, but you still have to keep doing it. It's difficult. It's difficult. It shouldn't be. You know, for musicians, you know what they say? What did Phil and I do over there? We play. You know? We play. We play. Yeah, think about it. We play. So why should we get paid to play? It's interesting. It's interesting. But we have to make a life too, you know? And art is very, very important. And you can't get rid of it. I mean, just put your television on, watch a movie, and turn the music off. And watch that movie. Or turn the screen off and just listen to the music. That might be kind of interesting. Ever listen to Pinocchio? Just listen to the music. It's amazing. It's like Stravinsky. Anyway, I can go on with this, but it's about art for me. But not only that, of course, it's about French, it's about philosophy, geography. I can't believe there could be a university without philosophy. That I don't get. But anyway, I just really don't get that. But anyway, we have to do something. I don't know what it is. You know, in my speech, what I was going to say is, you know, Jazz Sudbury, which is I'm the artistic director. I said we have to. I told our board we have to make a statement about Laurentian, and I know we're really close because I work there. So I'm not going to read it to you right now. You can go to jazzsudbury.com and find it, you know. But at the end of it, what it said was that the musicians and people will always keep going, and there was a conservatory of music through the Sudbury Symphony, and we were going to start a jazz institute. Now, we just find out in the news, Cambrian music program has 1 year left.
Yeah.
That's it. They weren't allowed to have any intake for the first year, 2 years ago. They did it again. That's going to be 2 years, no intake. So that means next September, they only have a third year program. How can you do that? There'll be no mentorship going on with the third years, talking to the first year, saying this is the way it goes. You have to practice, you have to work. Yeah, he's a hard professor, but you'll learn something. This is difficult, this is this, but this is great. This concert's gonna be fantastic. It's all gone. It's all gone. And so it's gone here. So the video that we're gonna put, you know, that video was in 2018. And when we used to have the jazz nights at Fromagerie. So you'll listen to it and you will hear the joy that's going on. It's gone. It's gone. It's completely gone. I played with my jazz trio for the convocations here at Laurentian for over 15 years. It's gone. I was always proud when people would come to listen to the music part of the convocation, and there was a drum beginning as well, and singing from an indigenous person, you know, and it was always really, really good. And people would come and say, "Wow, you know, we've gone to other university convocations, but they don't have interesting music." But we did have that here, but now that's gone. So I don't know what we have to do. We have to do something, and that's what I feel. You know, I'll keep making art. I'll keep doing it. So that's all.
Musicians like you. The world needs more musicians like you. Thank you. And please come see him play on Thursday night at Oscars. as well as Philippe and the not the LU jazz band. Philippe would also like to come say a few words. Philippe, it is temps de déchaîner. Alors, je te cède la parole, Philippe, là-dessus.
Ouais. C'est tellement. C'est lourd. Moi, je ne planifiais pas de parler ce soir-là. Je planifiais de parler à travers ma guitare ce soir, mais là, spécialement après la demande de Sudbury, c'est parler. Je m'enseignais de l'original, et après avoir raconté à Alex parler, je me sentais obligé, dans un sens. Je vais me faire un peu de coup de pouce sur qu'est-ce que mon professeur Alain Walsh a dit. Je veux vraiment vous partager une histoire sur pourquoi j'ai peur pour la scène musicale, la guitare, d'accord. Puis, pour faire ça, je vais vous parler de qu'est-ce que moi j'ai fait. Moi, j'ai pogné ma première guitare à 12 ans. C'est au Acid Vinegar. J'avais tellement hâte de commencer à jouer. Je jouais dans ma chambre. J'avais des enregistrements Stevie Ray Vaughan, des gars de blues et tout ça. Puis je me jouais dans une bande auparavant, je ne savais pas comment lire, je n'ai pas fait des leçons. Je suis rendu au secondaire. J'étais vraiment passionné de la musique, toujours pas dans une band. Mais je voulais être professeur. J'avais 7 ans, 8 ans. J'ai pensé, ben, peut-être que je pourrais étudier dans la musique, puis mon père m'a dit, ben, c'est pas vraiment aller, right? J'ai pas eu cette formation professionnelle-là, c'est juste bien. OK. J'ai regardé à mes notes, puis ben, je fais assez bien, en maths, médecine, physiologie, tout ça, mais je vais lancer une distinction tout le temps. Ben, j'ai duré 3 semestres. J'ai su que mon ami Zach Clément, lui, est en musique. Zach, à l'ancienne. Puis je lui avais dit que j'ai des discussions en première, tu sais, ça fait l'anatomie, la physiologie, tout ça, je suis comme ça, me passait. Bon, je ne peux pas faire ça. Il m'a dit, viens à une soirée du jazz combo. On a joué une vidéo auparavant, il dit, tu sais quoi faire. Il dit, quand j'ai soit sure enough, voilà, je rencontre Alan pour la première fois. Puis il m'a vu à mes débuts, là. Ah, je parle. Il m'a vu à mes débuts, là. Et puis, needless to say, j'ai commencé en musique peut-être un mois après, 2 mois après. Juste en temps pour le semestre d'hiver, ça s'est tout donné, tous mes crédits allaient bien. J'ai terminé ma 4e année avec un bac en musique. Oui. Dans cette année-là, j'ai appris comment lire. J'ai appris comment lire auparavant, j'ai appris des cours préparatoires. J'ai appris comment jouer dans un groupe. J'ai appris le genre qui est jazz, qui est. On ne peut même pas l'expliquer. Right? C'est ça vraiment le jazz, c'est que ça change continuellement, ça ne sera pas le défi. Right? C'est le défi. Tout ça pour dire que là, je suis rendu aujourd'hui, je joue dans 3 bands, vous connaissez peut-être, ce gars, il s'appelle Chuck Abel. Je suis son guitariste. Je l'ai vu, là, j'avais 8 ans, je j'étais à mon école, puis j'ai dit, oh my god, il faut que je prenne un poster de lui, puis je l'ai signé, puis je l'ai encore chez moi. Là, je suis dans sa base. Tu sais, on fait un peu full circle de même, puis je remercie là, des gars comme M. Roche pour me rendre ce que je suis aujourd'hui. Puis là, ben, je t'avais d'enregistrer mon premier album cet été, solo francophone. À cause des connexions que j'ai faites d'apprenant de musique. J'ai des personnes que j'ai joué avec, que j'ai travaillé avec, que j'ai parlé avec, j'ai eu à des concerts, des amis, right? C'est comme ça marche dans les arts, c'est toujours l'ami d'un ami, right? Mais ça, c'est pourquoi je pense que c'est important de penser aux arts, parce que là, si on n'a pas ce programme-là, mais là, des gars comme moi, qui ne savaient pas comment se débrouiller, puis qui ne savaient pas comment se rendre à une certaine place, le prochain gen ne sera pas capable de faire ça, au moins dans le Nord. Right? Ça, c'est quelque chose de vraiment à y penser. Mais j'ai venu ici parce que je veux vous partager un éditorial que j'ai écrit. Parce que certains d'entre vous me connaissez, je porte plusieurs chapeaux. Pour ça, je suis journaliste pour voyageur. Je suis également rédacteur en chef de Rien déchaîné. Certains d'entre vous ça fait déjà dit, évidemment, je suis aussi musicien. J'ai écrit un éditorial, on a lancé ma première édition de papier, ça fait 2 semaines. J'ai travaillé sur ça depuis le mois de septembre. Voyant tout ce qui se passait, là, j'étais pas mal seul dans la chambre. On n'a pas de journaliste. Right? Les gens sont tellement découragés qu'ils veulent quasiment plus en parler. Moi, j'étais seul vraiment dans mon bureau en train de figurer à qui je devais parler. Il y a du monde qui devait parler. Right? Il y a du monde qui avait des choses à dire. J'ai fait une entrevue avec M. Bissonnette. Ça, j'ai trouvé cette entrevue-là très riche. J'ai beaucoup appris. Puis vous pouvez toujours aller lire Rien déchaîné.com. J'ai écrit un éditorial qui s'appelle « 7 ans que l'administration se déniaise ». Je ressens de la frustration à l'égard de l'établissement de la Laurentienne depuis un certain temps maintenant. Au début, je ne savais pas si je devais concentrer mon attention sur les administrations passées, donc avant Haché, ou si je devais choisir ma bataille avec celle-ci. Notez que je l'appelle la Laurentienne et non la Laurentienne, parce que je ne suis plus satisfait de ce qu'elle offre aux francophones. Donc, je le vois vraiment une nouvelle anglophone. La vraie réponse est que les deux groupes sont à blâmer. En premier lieu, les dépenses inconsidérées de certaines administrations précédentes ont mis l'université en difficulté. Point final. En deuxième lieu, l'administration d'Haché a été forte dans ses coupures, comme on sait évidemment. Elle a vraiment privé les étudiants et la communauté d'opportunités précieuses. Elle s'est également montrée incroyablement secrète lors de ses opérations et est mis au bureau de la vérificatrice générale de l'Ontario des difficultés à accéder à certains documents financiers, arguant que cela causerait un dommage irréparable à l'institution. Aïe aïe. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire de la destination de l'argent? Où ça a été, ça? Voyons donc si ça va causer de dommages irréparable. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire, ça? Right? C'est du cash. C'est ça des questions qu'on s'est posées. En tout cas, c'est certain que cette administration n'a pas gagné des points auprès de la communauté. Donc, une chose est claire. La Laurentienne ne sait pas comment dépenser son argent et utiliser ses ressources. La mauvaise gestion est un problème majeur et ce depuis des années. Il s'agit ainsi en grande partie de paroles et non de l'actions, y compris son mandat culturel. C'est bien beau que la province soit intervenue pour aider au financement, mais cela n'a pas été si important. Ce serait bien de voir la province exiger davantage de la Laurentienne. L'idéal serait que la province déploie des efforts considérables pour mettre la Laurentienne sur la bonne voie, car jusqu'à présent, elle s'est comportée comme un enfant qui a besoin que son parent, la province, lui tienne la main. Je ne peux pas ignorer le fait que la province a exprimé ses préoccupations et qu'elle a fait savoir qu'elle allait intervenir. Mais encore une fois, tant que moi, sont juste des paroles et non des actions. Permettez-moi de commencer par une recommandation. Je pense qu'il est temps d'acheter son administration de cette civile. Malheureusement, je pense que son temps est passé et je crois qu'il est temps que quelqu'un d'autre prenne le rôle. J'espère que ce sera quelqu'un nommé par la province. Deuxièmement, je pense qu'il est temps que l'administration se réveille et s'en dégaine, comme on dit. La communauté francophone veut une véritable éducation francophone dans le nord de l'Ontario. Qui l'aurait pu, right? Il est temps de commencer à parler à l'Université de Sudbury, une école par, pour et avec les francophones. Comme elle a déjà quelques programmes qui lui sont propres, ce serait encore mieux si elle avait des programmes francophones de la Laurentienne. car pour l'instant, il semble que la Laurentienne refuse d'utiliser sa propriété intellectuelle. Alors, laissez-les faire. Vous ferez un travail à la communauté francophone. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Philippe. We will now conclude this segment of the evening with the closing song by Will. But before that, Will, I just want to take a moment. You can stay, that's fine. You look good there. Before we close this segment, we would just like to sincerely thank President John Eagle. Thank you so much. Well done. Thank you so much for receiving us. Dan Scott, thank you so much for being here. Wherever you are, thank you. Our firekeepers, Sean and Simon, was there?
Yeah, Sean, Simon, Goal, and Musical Center.
Yes, we had wonderful firekeepers today. De coalition d'Armentarienne pour l'Université de langue française qui ont été si généreux avec une contribution financière, the Canadian Federation of Students, the Not the LU Jazz Combo, and the Continuing Education Students Association at X University, as well as Laurentian.org and James Crispo and Emily Yen for your generous support of our work. Thank you to all of our presenters. Et merci à vous tous et à vous toutes d'être présents ici ce soir. Vos contributions sont très, très appréciées. We will have light refreshments after Will concludes, and you're welcome to come back for a sharing circle. The program has become a little longer, but we're here for a while. This problem is not going away, so we're not in a rush. So you're welcome to stay after the refreshments and come back and share. So we will conclude with a closing song by Will and Chimiguch, all of you. Thank you also to those online for your presence this evening. And don't forget that we have declaration. We also have more events coming, a student roundtable tomorrow at 3, also here at Thornlow, and a wonderful the jazz concert on Thursday night. So, all yours. Go ahead.
Greetings again, and humbled to be here. I'm going to share a song and set it up. I'm in many ways dedicating this as well too for the reason why I got into education was not to teach, but hope to inspire. And it's for all those students that I've had the opportunity, and I have one in the crowd here as well, the opportunity to have these individuals that are students that we've had the honor to help guide them. And so the song that I'm going to sing, it's in the Ojibwe language, Gigadona. So if I can get to my first image, the poster for Gigado. Gigado is to speak. Gigadona, are you speaking? Gigadona, are you speaking? And the next line is Masaya, are we walking? And when we walk, we share. But in order to share, we each need to take turns to share and listen. And that's what the song is about. So I'm going to be asking many things to, if they are speaking. Asking first the Creator, are you speaking? Asking the grandfathers, asking the grandmothers, asking of Mother Earth, asking of the animals, asking of the trees and the plants, asking of the stars, if they are listening. And when I ask them, then I walk with them, so that I can hear them. And the object that I have in my hand here, if you can put your hands on your pacemakers. Put your hands on your pacemakers. I want you to say, Odette.
Odette.
That's what that is right there, Odette. Okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to share with you what the word is for this object in the Ojibwe language, okay? It's Odette Wega. Try that.
Odette Wega.
So what is this?
Odette Wega.
The heartbeat. It's not a drum, it's a heartbeat. So you heard when you were inside your mother. And so the song is in honor of all those of creation, that includes you as well, okay?
So thanks, everyone. That concludes the first segment of the evening. So you're welcome to stay for refreshments, and you're welcome to come back or do whatever you want.
Thank you, Manik.